I would love to take over and really introduce this great topic. The topic's so important for everyone in the coaching world and the health and fitness. So I'd like to start off with the person that's at the top of the screen, Mark. Now, please, I don't want to introduce your surname incorrectly, so please, Drushk, is that correct?
So close, and I've heard much worse. So that was Droizika, Mark Droizika.
Droizika, perfect. I love it. Thank you. And I'll just introduce everyone, and then I'd love to get a bit of a background on yourself, if that's okay. So thank you, Mark. And Michelle Ray, thank you so much. I think this is going to be a great talk. And of course, Karen Lawson. Thank you so much, Karen.
Nice to be here.
Lovely for you to be here. So, Mark, was it all three of you who actually got this topic? Is it based on the backgrounds? If you'd like to talk more about your background and the reason of the subject.
Absolutely, yeah. So Karen was actually the one who submitted this for us, but we'll just briefly introduce ourselves here. So once again, everyone, my name is Mark Droizika. I am a National Board Certified Health Coach and did my coach trainings at both Duke Integrative Medicine and Vanderbilt. Also trained as an MD, and I joke that I was fortunate to discover in medical school that my passion was not prescribing drugs and telling people what to do. So the field of coaching has really been an exciting path for me. I currently do research and consulting and help design coach training programs, do contract work with the VA Whole Health Initiative, and I'm currently enrolled in a psychedelic integration coach certification program, which I will share a little bit more about in our time together today.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, that sounds so interesting. Thank you. You've got an array of knowledge right there. So, Michelle, could you please let everyone know a bit about your background?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today. My name is Michelle Ray, and I'm a Nationally Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. Was in that first cohort here in 2017. And I have taught with Karen as a graduate faculty at the University of Minnesota through the Center for Spirituality and Healing for 16 years in a variety of different courses there for our master's and our certification program. And I'm also a registered pharmacist by first degree and author. I have written a book called Living from the Center Within. I have a private practice. I do one-on-one coaching. I do organizational development, kind of both personal and professional. And I have a master's in human development. So my lens in coaching is this holistic, integrative health and wellness kind of mind, body, spirit way of living a mindfulness-based life. And one of the reasons that this subject of transformation and really taking the lens wider is that we see as coaches that people come in and we of course meet them where they are, but some of my clients come in dysregulated and want to get regulated, and some come in regulated and really want to step into their optimal. And there's others that come in feeling like they're optimal, but they haven't reached their full potential, like that enlightened, living their most empowered genius life. And that's what lights me up. And I think lights all three of us up. So we look forward to sharing more of our ideas and experiences in that.
Perfect. I've got lots of questions right there, Michelle. So I'm excited. Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, Karen Lawson. I'm a recovering physician. I wasn't as smart as Mark. It took me longer. I had to practice medicine for a while before I discovered this coaching thing. I've been in the area of holistic and integrative, although I came from a background of family medicine and emergency medicine. I've been in the area of holistic and integrative healthcare for 25 plus years. I'm going to stop counting after that. Actually have been working in the area of integrative health coaching for almost 20 years. I founded and ran the program at University of Minnesota for 17 years. And currently have my own business, IHWC, Integrative Health and Wellness Coaching Productions. And a lot like Mark, I help design training programs at different places, improve training programs, expand training programs to bring in holistic and integrative perspectives. I also I'm on some research grants, do some research work, and I also teach for the VA in their amazing transformational efforts that they are making with their systems. So, and I love to do everything with friends and colleagues. So when an opportunity came out to speak, I'm like, only if I can bring some buddies along, because it's way more the panel. So I'm
It
thrilled
is.
that Mark and Michelle can be here and we're willing to jump in with me.
Excellent. Because, you know, the more people are around us are like-minded, guess who gets the benefit of our coaches, right? So you have such an array of knowledge. So you talk about the subject today, evolving into your best coaching self. So when you actually thought of this subject, could you tell us and expand about what, you know, this topic was really, what you were capturing, what was your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, and my thoughts evolved too after I brought others in, but I can certainly start, which was when I did the program at Minnesota, we were very dedicated to it not only being a holistic and integrated perspective, but also having a very strong foundation in supporting not just the health, but the expansive well-being of the students who are becoming coaches, because we really felt like coaches can't take clients further than they've gone themselves. And it's not like we ever reach the pinnacle and woohoo, we're done, but that we're always committed to that lifelong process of growth and expansion. And I know because I'm a founding board member at the national board, and I've been on the program approval committee since its founding, and I see applications come in from programs that are focused on just hitting the basics of what coaching is, but what is often is left out are those two aspects of it's not necessarily bringing a holistic lens to the coaching dynamic. And it's also really not focusing on how we as coaches become our best selves so that we can support others in becoming their best selves. And so I really felt like this was a topic that people that come from all different training backgrounds might want to think about, because their program might not have necessarily focused on that. And then these guys came in with all kinds of great, crazy ideas that they'll share with you.
Wonderful. So who's going to start first? Karen, Mark and Michelle, what do you want to put in there first? Because I'm sure that, you know, coaches want to be the best. So is it your experience? What is lacking? What is the best?
I can add a few things. The three of us had put together kind of a list of questions that we thought we'd throw in the chat. So I've offered one here as people think about this for themselves. You know, what does it mean to them? Because I think for us, part of it means, yes, we start at the beginning, right? We start with this place of the wellness wheel, you know, as Karen was saying, with the basics. But then we also really want to emphasize the mindfulness part of it, because the only way we make changes is if we can notice, right, where we're, say, dysregulated or triggered, find the space, the pause, and then be able to make different choices to make these practices. And we talk about foundational practices, to take that deep breath, to be able to take a moment. What am I thinking? Where are my emotions, right? Where am I triggered? What are my stress symptoms? And then I can apply a practice of movement, let's say, or reading or studying or being in nature or doing ritual, right? We can find time in our life to create more harmony, more regulation, more homeostasis, activating the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And we also then can find ways throughout our day to go ahead and bring ourselves back through these foundational practices to our best self, to our balance. And that might just be a breath or a stretch, right? I have a fun little thing that someone taught me a while ago where you can hold your thumb that has lots of acupressure points, and just even, right, doing that, bringing our attention back into the present moment, out of the past and future. And the other part for me in the foundational practices is the intelligences. So thinking about a wellness wheel, again, kind of beyond the basics to where are we at personally, as well as developing as our clients develop in spiritual intelligence, emotional, social, environmental, right, cultural, conversational. And so these are some of the thoughts that we have on this expanding idea of coaching. And as Karen said, we can only sit with and meet clients to the level that we are developed. Mark, how about you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think as both Karen and Michelle have been alluding to, we really kind of were enjoying this brainstorming around, yeah, when we think about these foundational self-care practices as coaches, I mean, what does that actually mean? And after thinking about it, what occurred to me is, whereas I think self-care typically conjures up these ideas of these individual activities and practices, whereas, something I have personally experienced is that a lot of social bonds and interpersonal connections, and I want to emphasize the right personal connections really help to calibrate my own nervous system and make me feel more grounded and focused and balanced. And so really started thinking about this idea of co-regulation. And so folks may have heard this term co-regulation, but really just referring to how people influence and regulate each other's nervous systems, really that kind of reciprocal interaction where, people really do attune to and respond to each other's level of activation, their emotional energy, and even behaviors to maintain a state of balance or regulation. I know for me, I've always really enjoyed even the research around this, even back to a lot of what we know about attachment theory, which suggests that those secure attachments, characterized by those sensitive and responsive caregiving, really does promote better emotion regulation in children and increases their capacity to co-regulate others. Also really exciting work in the field of interpersonal neurobiology, which again really emphasizes that role of relationships on brain development and regulation of emotions. Really intrigued by these neuroimaging studies using even functional MRI to show how those positive social interactions actually activate brain regions associated with emotion regulation and empathy and even reward processing. And similarly, studies on stress regulation showing that just being in the presence of a trusted relationship in a stressful situation can lead to decreased cortisol and better stress management. So really a lot of things just emphasizing that that co-regulation can be so important to modulate our own reactivity and stress response. And so last thing I'll say about this, because while I really love the science that supports this, I love to nerd out, and I'm a total research guy with this stuff. But I think what's becoming more and more meaningful to me is just that experience of co-regulation that I know for myself. I can't really describe it in words, but when I'm with someone who just seems to get me, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I feel it. And personally, I'm just really starting to pay more attention to that in my life, again, as a really just foundational practice in self-care. I often think about that saying that people may have heard, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I actually do think that there might be some truth to that.
And
So-
if I could just add, Mark, the power to that, as we're talking about today's topic, is that if you in your personal life are cultivating that and spending time, that's impacting you, your nervous system, your regulation. And then you carry that through when you go into relationship with a client in a session. It's like you're changing and evolving your own energetic field of being, as well as your own physiology. And studies show that, the electronic field, the electromagnetic field from our heart radiates, 6 to 8 feet off the body. So if we're cultivating intentionally the quality of our field and our ability in our private time and in our relationships and in our managing our own, kind of stress and well-being, then we bring that with us into our coaching work, and we're able to create that experience for somebody that maybe is not getting that experience somewhere else. They might not even know what it is. They just know that it feels good, that they feel safety there, that there's an ease when they come in. And I think it's one of the pieces as coaches that we're responsible for that we don't often talk about. And we're not really taught, so I love the way that you talked about that, Mark.
Yeah, that is so important. I love that, Mark, definitely. And Karen, that is exactly right. And I was going to say that when you have that feeling, you know exactly how it feels, and you want to, portray that to your clients, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is get them to that lifestyle, that coaching, the health and wellness from within. So we as coaches need to absolutely experience that.
Yeah, very true. You know, one of the things that we had thought about today's content a little bit in the area of like the foundational practices, and you know, what are those for you? And I love the question that Michelle has posted there for you guys to consider for yourselves. And we also like to think about the bigger, more expansive, what's beyond the basic, right? And we were kind of calling that the idea of expanding, like, what's your worldview perspective, and how do we really foster mindsets, not just for ourselves, but for our clients. And I would love, I know, you know, Michelle, you are really eloquent in talking about this. I'd love for you to kick off for us, maybe talking about that bigger worldview perspective expansion.
Yeah, thank you. We came up with some questions for everybody joining us today or in the future as well around transformation, because that's a piece of it. People come in and they want to share their stories of transformation where they had an experience where it sort of was mind-blowing, or it shifted their belief and their horizons. So can think about that for ourselves, but there is this model of human development where we think that we end at the end of our skin, right? And we're an individual. And then we have these breakthrough experiences of synchronicity that are undeniable, or intuition, or just this ability to notice more, have a revelation or inspiration, right? And with that kind of interconnectedness, there's Lynn McTaggart has this book on meta study research, right, on the field that you were talking about, Karen, this morphic field, this quantum field that we all tap into. And when we have enough of our attention in the present moment and are able to co-regulate, right, and have high quality relationships, that cultivates our coaching presence, is one of the languages you were talking about it too, Karen. We gain more confidence, right? We are more able to take risks or stretch ourselves or explore a new idea and really maintain that beginner's mind. So it's been fun to be able to practice that. I know in my own life, I recently went to a conference that was about expanding our awareness to access higher levels of consciousness. And I spent 3 days immersed with people in a ton of different professions, talking about this, coming at it from history, coming at it from what we're learning about photonic light and right quantum physics. It was fascinating to keep learning for me. And for instance, I, just like what we're talking about, came back, and I'm in the middle of co-facilitating a 6-month master course for coaches about transformation and this process of human development, and to bring through those stories and to encourage our participants to share stories of their transformation has brought a depth and breadth to that experiential program. And so it's really cool to be offering it for 30 CE credits. And it has this component that we, all three of us in particular, really appreciate. So I'm going to pass it to one of the two of you here to continue.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Wow, this is such a cool segue, because I know in our conversations about different ways to expand our worldviews and those kind of shifting mindsets, I just thought that I would share a little bit about a coach program that I'm currently enrolled in around psychedelic integration coaching. And so I'll give a little more context for psychedelics here in a moment, but why I'm really interested in them from a coaching standpoint is because psychedelic practitioners and researchers widely agree that the outcomes from psychedelic work largely depend on the preparation that happens before one uses psychedelics and the integration afterwards. So already this may be reminding you all of the coaching process, right? Like, how do we prepare clients for the work of coaching, right? That self-awareness, those moments of self-discovery, and then how do we help and support them to integrate those aha moments into the daily behaviors and decisions. But let me just back up first and just really kind of broadly define, what are we talking about when I mention these psychedelic medicines? So psychedelics very broadly are substances that alter perception, and consciousness. So they're known for their ability to induce these really unique and profound psychological experiences. For those of you familiar with Andrew Huberman and his podcast, Huberman Lab, he's been doing a series of podcasts on psychedelics. And I just heard him say that in the research literature, participants commonly report psychedelic experiences being the most profound and positive experiences in their life. And so just a quick disclaimer here, because not all psychedelic experiences are going to be pleasant and positive, right? In fact, just that word psychedelic derives from the Greek words meaning to reveal the psyche. And so even the name implies that it will expose whatever the psyche is needing to reveal or process. And just for clarifications of what medicines we're talking about specifically, some well-known psychedelics you may recognize include psilocybin or magic mushrooms, LSD, MDMA or ecstasy, and others like DMT and peyote. But again, why talk about these in the context of expanding worldview perspectives and really inducing these transformative changes in mindset? And it's because these substances really help to explore consciousness, right? To really challenge people's deeply ingrained beliefs and broaden our understanding of reality. So let me just dive into that a little more by focusing on really a few categories of potential benefits through our lens of coaching. And the first to talk about is around this idea of just being able to temporarily disrupt those cognitive filters and perspectives in the brain. So these cognitive filters I'm talking about, which are really formed by societal norms, right? The cultural conditioning, our personal experiences really do shape our perception of reality and often limit our worldview. Whereas under the influence of psychedelics, these filters are just momentarily lifted, just enough to allow people to perceive the world with this heightened clarity and that reduced bias. And so, in other words, kind of the dissolution of these cognitive filters enables people to examine their beliefs and assumptions from a fresh and unbiased perspective, leading to a more just expansive worldview. The second benefit that I think is interesting in terms of the coaching is this term ego dissolution, which is a temporary loss of sense of self and identity. And now for me, this is where things can start to get a little woo-woo, right? So for me, the easier explanation here really uses the word, and Michelle, I love how much you talked about this, but this idea of interconnectedness, right? And so what ego dissolution really means is allowing someone to transcend their personal boundaries, right? This perception that I am a self-contained, I am separate, I am perhaps not influenced by kind of external factors. And instead, people are able to experience this connection with all things in the universe. And by really experiencing that deep sense of interconnectedness, people also tend to develop a deep appreciation for the interdependence of all living things, really helping to kind of, again, shift that mindset from the individualism to a much more holistic and interconnected perspective, which again, just aligns so well with the kind of coaching, coaching models and, really seeing the interconnection of all aspects of behavior change. And then just the last thing I wanted to mention, again, specifically in regards to coaching, is that psychedelics really have the potential to challenge those deeply ingrained beliefs and assumptions. Those altered states can allow people just to question their preconceived notions, their ideologies, biases, and just that willingness to see things from a different perspective really opens the door to new possibilities, continuing to facilitate that shift in mindset towards a more just inclusive, open-minded, and even more tolerant worldviews. So again, just really want to emphasize, the reason for me I'm so interested in these, the potential of psychedelics really is for their potential to facilitate the work that we're already doing as coaches, right? I want to be really clear that, of course, there are risks, both clinically and of course legally around psychedelics. So I'm not personally, condoning or advocating for the use of psychedelics. However, I do absolutely advocate for coaching. And I think that the work that we do as coaches can be transformative and life-changing. And you know what? I'm always willing to meet clients where they are and to have other tools in our toolkit.
You know, Mark, if I may, I'm just laughing because, you're speaking my language. I've been a student of shamanic practices for 30 years. And I just want to acknowledge for those of you who might be like, well, I'm interested in expanding my worldview, but I'm not so sure about taking one of those substances, that any altered state work takes us out of our usual way of seeing and being in the world, right? And there are lots of different ways of reaching other altered states besides substances. We use common ones all the time with alcohol and caffeine and stuff. I mean, there's lots of different altered states. We all dream at night, right? So that's an altered state. There's some real benefits to using a substance for an altered state because there's a way of containing it and starting it and stopping it. It's pretty fast. I mean, you take it and you have an experience. Whereas like, if you decide you're going to get an altered state by fasting, it might take you 3 days, right? So there's lots and lots of ways where people over millennium have used altered states of some kind, drumming, dancing, fasting, deprivation, sensory deprivation tanks. I mean, there's lots of ways to get into altered states, but the whole point is to find ways to disconnect us from those ruts that we're in, from our usual ways of thinking and being, and the limitations that we've somehow agreed implicitly are the truth, right? And allow us to see that, the lighthouse that shines the light in 360 degrees, we're probably only been seeing out of one window. And so I just want to kind of say, because I think what Mark's talking about is so important. I thought, excuse me, that this kind of exploration was something you did in your personal life. And then you went over here and you did your professional practice, right? Like much of our world, I was very compartmentalized. And I really didn't think the two had much to do with each other. And this was personal development, spiritual exploration, et cetera. And it became very clear after about 10 years that there was no separation, and that about what we do as individuals in our personal, spiritual, emotional, energetic evolution and development informs everything that we do professionally. And if we aren't committed to and willing to take risk and grow and out there when we're not in the office coaching clients, we'll never be the full potential of what we can be as coaches when we're in the room with clients. And so to me, it's almost I don't get CE for it, but it's like a professional obligation that I need to be continuing to be out there to crack open the places where I'm stuck, to explore into new areas, because the fascinating thing, and I know Mark and Michelle and I have talked about this before, of that whole, as we were talking about kind of that morphic field, that idea that there's energetic fields and we interact with each other and we interact with the earth and we interact with the plants and the animals around us. We also set up a field that attracts certain things to us because beings like to be in resonance, right? We're like a tuning fork, and other tuning forks that are vibrating at the same pitch like to be with us. If we are setting up that resonance, then when we're with clients, we call in, I think, people that are ready to work with us, people that are kind of vibing at the same level, people that need the vibration we're offering. Sometimes that can be really challenging because sometimes it means the area that we're working on in our own life. We always joke, if you're working on, I don't know, my issues with my father, you're going to have 5 clients walk in that's what they're dealing with. That we just, there's a like to like connection that happens. And we can be really intentional about what we want that field that we're setting up to look like by committing ourselves to some of the kind of exploration that may use psychedelics, may use other altered states, may be traveling to some place you've never been and having an experience that just shakes you up out of your usual world. So, we really like to think about that big piece of how we can support transformation in our patients, not just behavior change of, now I eat vegetables 3 days a week. It's a bigger picture than that. So, yeah.
That's perfect. And I loved it. We've got some questions just down below. So obviously there's Mark, there's coaches out there that are obviously new to this, to learn about psychedelics. So questions are here is, what about what Karen was saying, other modalities that you can use for altered states, like meditation, like hypnosis, because of the, it says here, like the addiction, like you don't want it to be going down that road.
Yeah. Thank you, Magdalena. The first thing I will say is that I will absolutely join those coaches and say I am brand new exploring this area myself. And so, just kind of really, really appreciating the kind of the resonance and the curiosity there. But yeah, I think in addition to some of those practices that Karen mentioned, I mean, for example, breath work practices, I mean, very intentional, and again, just to put it in very layman's terms, you get a little kind of lightheaded and a little, and it's just, but in a very controlled way, can just create shifts in the nervous system that I would also describe as a bit of an altered state. People are talking a lot about now about the cold plunges and the ice baths, which is
Right.
very similar. Even things like sauna or kind of the sweat lodges. I mean, there's lots of ways that historically people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. So again, just to emphasize that, I believe this is really kind of embedded in our DNA. So sort of, to really experience these things and ask these questions. But yeah, Karen, Michelle, curious. Oh yeah, Magdalena.
Yeah. So just one last thing, and then I'll send it to Michelle, because there was a comment that Gabor Mate had actually talked about psychedelics as well when he was talking to Tim Ferriss. So that was just a comment on.
His stuff is wonderful. And I just want to say before you hand it over that I heard you mention quickly in passing there the concern about addiction kind of thing.
That was
just even, I know Mark's just dabbing his toe in, but for in the field and how psychedelics are used in therapeutic ways, it's very controlled in a setting, number one. Number two, psychedelics as a group, as a drug, I'll put my biochemistry hat on, are not addictive substances. So they're not, they're not like you're going out there and doing, crack or heroin or nicotine. They're, they have a very different effect on our brains. So the addiction risk is not one of the major concerns about working with psychedelics. I just wanted to kind of correct any misperception.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
I'll chime in here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's actually going to lead us in a guided meditation. So I'm excited about that. And one of the things that we're talking, just to kind of bring it full circle, is that the point of having mindset shifts and creating conditions that help us break through our own limitations, our own constrictions, our own false beliefs, right? Negative self-talk, all those things, is so that we can live at a more free, liberated, authentic, empowered self. Right? It's not to have the experience. In transpersonal psychology, we talk about it. We can be at any state of consciousness, right? From complete despair to that unity consciousness and complete bliss. And what we're talking about is having those, cultivating these, again, foundational practices so that we expand our definition and knowing ourself as that interconnected field. So we can live at that stage of consciousness as our usual perceptive capacity. So it's kind of coming full circle to the coaching, where the goal is to take the steps so that there is a new normal in our own way of being in the world. And these are just some examples. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark, and I'm looking forward to this meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Magdalena, I hope it's okay. We were brainstorming and we thought it might be fun to have maybe something a little more experiential, or people kind of out there
of course
drop in. And so terrific and great, kind of along the lines that we've been saying. I mean, just to acknowledge this idea of kind of evolving into our best coaching selves. It is a journey, right? It is a path. It is a process, not a destination. And as coaches, we all know how useful it can be to have something, that future vision. That's we're really kind of latching onto, and that's somewhat very, very motivating and enlightening and clarifying. So what I'm going to offer now is just that, a brief guided visualization around all of your best future selves, okay, with the intention of perhaps providing some insights into how you might best care for yourself now to achieve that optimal future vision. And so just a little more context before we begin. As you're listening to my words, you may experience images, senses, maybe even certain emotions. And so the invitation here is to simply allow yourself to fully experience whatever comes up for you. And of course, if nothing comes to mind, that's okay too. You can just simply notice that. So we will begin now by just inviting anyone out there to simply close your eyes, or you might just cast your gaze downward if that is more comfortable for you. And then as you're settling into your current position, just allowing yourself to take 2 or 3 intentional breaths. Really noticing your breath moving in and out. Bringing attention to the fullness of your body. Perhaps the points of contact with the chair or the ground beneath you. And then as you're settling in, seeing if you can allow an image of your future self to develop in your mind's eye. Doesn't matter how far in the future, just noticing whatever image comes to mind. And remembering that you are observing your future self as separate from what you are now, just witnessing them thrive, thriving in an optimal state of well-being. Taking a moment to really sense into this, observing your best future self, healthy, energized, yet grounded, focused, and committed. Noticing how you might look, how you are moving and feeling in your body. Perhaps noticing what you are doing or who is with you. Simply noticing and breathing into the fullness of the entire experience. Sensing your energy, sensing your mind, your emotions. What does your future self truly look and feel like? And then as you are witnessing your future self, you might even pause to ask them a single question. Whatever question feels most important to you now. And then allowing yourself to receive whatever your future self has to offer in response. And noticing how that makes you feel. You might offer your future self a notion of gratitude for what they just shared with you. taking the next several breaths to notice key things that you want to bring back with you. And as you allow that vision to settle and perhaps letting go, gently returning your attention back to the breath. Noticing the rise and fall of your breathing, gently bringing attention back into your body, perhaps wiggling your toes, or gently stretching, really listening for whatever movement your body might need. And when you are ready, opening your eyes if they were closed, and returning now to our time together. And so because these types of experiences can often be, profound and really enlightening for people, I had prepared just a few kind of follow-up questions for folks to debrief. And again, these are very kind of introspective questions for folks to consider. But the first would just be, what stood out? What really stood out about your future self in that visualization? And then a nice follow-up question might be maybe what surprised you? What surprised you? And just a couple more questions for folks to consider. What parts of your future vision are a part of you now? Okay, so what parts of your future vision are a part of you now? And then also, what from your visualization would you like to honor more fully in your life? So thank you all. I hope folks out there were able to participate, and that may have been helpful in some way. And thank you all for participating here on screen.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Mark. Wow, I've got some great visions. So there was some amazing, for me, I got clarity and to have knowingness within yourself. So that's what I brought back with me. So that was truly amazing. So I just want to have some questions, if that's okay. Karen, do you want to say anything else, or just before there's some Q&A here, or? Whoops. Karen.
Sorry, I muted for the experience.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'd like to say, because I think it really reiterates, and Mark, you have that lovely voice, but I think all of us as coaches should have at least some tools in our toolkit, whether we call them grounding practices, centering practices, breathing practices, that we can comfortably introduce tools like this to our clients. I know in teaching students over the years, all of my teaching and all of my students, and I've even done this with medical students and residents, is to teach them to at least start every session with, if you don't do anything else, do 3 deep breaths, something, because I think part of the potential of coaching to change healthcare is to bring in that attitude and that way of interacting and honoring of people that takes it out of our pressured everyday reality. And visualization, I mean, that was what, Mark, maybe 5 minutes, and look at how it was impactful for me. Magdalena, it sounds like it was impactful for you. So it's amazing how just even short little visualization, breathing, movement practices, and bringing those in and making those part of your coaching, I think just has such great potential for getting past just the talking and thinking part, So thank you, Mark. It was lovely.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like, Michelle, is that a question that you had that you've just put here, or is that?
Well, one of the things, because we're true coaches, as we're wrapping up, we wanted to give everyone the invitation, excuse me, to think about what are some of your takeaways, like from what we've talked about today. How do you think this could impact your coaching? How one of the things with coaches, for instance, is we have to pay attention to ourselves, our clients, the container, what's happening, and as we practice expanding our capacity to be in the present moment with our presence, right? Managing our attention, think about the increased ability to read the energy in the room, right? And how much that expands our coaching process. And I know that from my work with students, and Karen and Mark probably have the same experience, that we younger coaches often don't want to, push their boundaries, like, ooh, that's too big of an emotion, or I have to try to fix that, or suggest something prematurely, right? Or really give advice so that we as coaches feel more comfortable. And so all of these exercises, as Karen's suggesting, we can bring them into our coaching sessions. We can do them independently outside to continue to cultivate our capacity. But I do believe that as we gain confidence and we realize that our presence and ability to deeply listen and reflect and be with our clients wherever they are, as Mark was saying, we continue to enhance our capacity to coach. So we just wanted to have people think about that. And then, is there any action that from what we've talked about, what you've heard here, from maybe some of the questions even coming, that you're willing to commit to personally and professionally, even within the next week? So just had to get our little coaching takeaway ideas in there as well. That's all. Thank you.
Agree. Thank you, Michelle. I agree, because I think, we get burnouts as coaches. We are in energy that is not aligned to us. So it's also, a clearing for us. But I think one of the questions is that we want to really, in a word, say, if you will, cleanse ourselves of the energy that comes in, because we see so many people, we see so many different types, we see so many different issues, that we want to have a clearer mind for the next one. And we have to give them that space. And it's our due diligence to be clear, to be ready for the next client. So I guess coaches are here saying, well, what is our scope of practice? We all want to better ourselves. We all want to have a clear mind. We want to be the best coaches we can be. But is that out of our scope of practice to search for ourselves so that we can then help our clients or patients when we're clear? Do you know what I'm saying? So we want to still stay in the scope of practice, even though we want to venture out and try these things, because if we don't try them, how can we suggest it to our clients? So, what are your takes? Can we help coaches know how far we can go? What can they go, and where can they best seek, what they can do to further themselves?
I'm just going to real quickly say, and then I can feel Michelle and Mark percolating. The scope of practice is what we do with our clients, right? That's scope of practice by definition is in session. So we're not necessarily saying that you have to be, out there leading them on psychedelic trips, or what you do for your own personal growth and development has nothing technically legally to do with your scope of practice. It informs who you are and who you bring into session and what capacity you have to hold the experience of another. But it's not something you're doing to them. And again, if you think of our scope of practice as coaches as being experts in, I say, belief and behavior change, because I don't think real behavior change happens without belief change, then anything that you're doing that's supporting that is all right. We're not talking about you becoming an expert in XYZ and teaching somebody else that. Certainly you might decide, wow, I really want to get better at guided imagery, so I'm going to take some guided imagery training, or I really like to do hypnosis. So there may be tools within your scope legally and ethically that you can bring in and add as coaches. I know probably a third of the students that I've had over the years have added in extra training in meditative practices, energetic practices, Reiki, healing touch, self-massage, acupressure, essential oils. I mean, there are other tools that are certainly legally available to us that you might want to get more training in. But I think first we're starting about what you can do for yourself out there, so you can bring yourself in.
That's exactly right, Karen. So that's exactly what Mark was saying. This is what we can do as coaches, right? So that's right, Mark. So I just want to emphasize these are the tools that we can help ourselves, because like I said, I premised, we get burnt out. So we need to, and we get triggered. I'm sure we get triggered because we're only human, right? We're human beings with emotions, just like our clients. So go, Mark, you were going to say?
Yeah, I mean, it really, this almost feels so simple to me. I feel like maybe Karen, Michelle, and I all had a similar kind of reaction to even the question, which is like, my gosh, like coaching, perhaps, more than many other professions out there, if you're not walking the talk of coaching in your own personal life, then how are you possibly bringing those kind of more indirect, subtle, energetic, feelings of connection, unless you are truly embodying this for yourself? And just to highlight what Karen was saying, yeah, absolutely, that's very distinct from kind of what we're doing when we have our coaching hat on. But yeah, absolutely, I think the imperative, and this is why, of course, the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching has so many of the, continuing education. And yeah, I would truly encourage folks, pursue things that are meaningful for you, and practice those things yourself that are meaningful for you, and just be curious about how they show up in your coaching as you have your, kind of coaching hat on. But yeah, fascinating question. This is great.
Yeah, it is great. And I actually, like I said, mentioned one of the chats mentioned about Gabor Mate, you know what I mean? But I just know that he's dealt with trauma, so he sees it in his coaches. So the exploration of how we can better, and this is your perfect topic of how we can be better coaches, right? So seeing what we can do and staying within ourselves to be better for our clients, not only for them, but for us to continue this great service. Michelle, did you want to say something? I'm sure you.
Yeah, I can just kind of close with one piece of summary is that Karen and Mark have both said, we want to be able to carry our vibration as a high frequency. You alluded to heart math, Karen, right? The coherence in our 6 to 8 feet where we resonate. We want to be that kind of high frequency presence that our coaches can come in and resonate at that level, whether they get it or not, and attune, right? We have mirror neurons happening here, right? All of that kind. And so the part of it for us is to stay clear, to continue radiating our own high frequency so we don't get burnt out as quickly, right? We also get a kind of a good universal intelligence love bath, right? When we're at that vibrating at that frequency when we're in our coaching sessions. And that is the benefit for us to be able to learn how to maintain a high level of frequency, consciousness, however we look at that, whatever model we're talking about, so that we can be that. It's the being even more than the doing, I think, that we bring as we talk about us as a transformative agent in our coaching practice.
I agree. And I just want to say being, I love that. I absolutely love that. I don't know if you know about The Ultimate Coach, if you've heard of him, but he's got a book out that says just to act in the being. I think we sort of miss that as well as coaches. So hello, Johannes.
I'm sorry, I have to kind of have the bad news. We have 1 or 2 minutes left. And before I'd like to say, first of all, thank you, Magdalena, for guiding everyone. And if all of you would like to kind of last word or like the essence of what you want to share with our audience, because I hope you're going to join us again next year. because this has so much potential, so much depth, how coaches can be better, go to the next level. I totally agree that's needed, walk the talk. So maybe everybody like a few seconds, half a minute to close. And what is the message that you find really is essential to share with our audience? Now, unfortunately, we have to close.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, and I'll thank you. Magdalena, again, just to really kind of acknowledge the person who asked the question around, the burnout and the scope. I mean, that's real. Like, that is absolutely real. And so, my gosh, in terms of evolving into our best coaching selves, I mean, there's a reason we started with self-care, but also have some fun out there, y'all. Like, my gosh, again, that's just energy that we all need to be feeling right now in connection. So, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might just piggyback on Mark and say it is about having fun. It's about exploring. It's about beginner's mind. It's about being curious. And we have to also be willing to set down and let loose, sometimes one finger prying at a time. Some of those limiting beliefs, conditionings, right? Those truths that fall away as we have a new experience that says, wow, I'm not limited to that. And I'm going to continue being as curious about it. So be playful, have colleagues. I'm very blessed to have these two as colleagues and others. Find your people, take your courses, continue new practices and be willing to evolve.
Great. And, echo what both of them said. To me, it's often about, finding your passion and, really following that, whatever it looks like. So what lights you up? What do you resonate with? If you're getting burned out in your coaching practice, maybe you're not doing your coaching practice the right way. Maybe you're not working with the right clientele. Maybe, open yourself up to the possibility of, just like we do with clients, of finding out what they value, what's important to them. Are you having that conversation with yourself? What do you value? What's important to you? What gets you excited? What gets you, vibrating at that high frequency that Michelle talked about? And what do you need to do when you're not doing your work that fuels that fire, that keeps you going and keeps your passion? I'm a dancer, so I'm out there, or I'm in nature somewhere. So I'm either on a yoga mat or I'm in a dance studio. So those two things are what keep me going. And without those, I'd be a miserable coach. So, find what lights you up.
Thank you so much. Everybody listening, give our wonderful speakers and Magdalena a big hug virtually. You guys feel it, type it into the chat box. Thank you again. Please be back next year, right? And we're going to take it from there. Okay. Lots of room to grow for everybody. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.